during the course of this morning, but in fairness to everyone that is here, we will commence. So good morning and welcome to this webinar. This follows on from two recent podcasts that we've carried out on the subject matter, both of which can be found on our YouTube channel. The purpose of this webinar is to share some of the research in how blockchain technologies can support the positive transformation in the construction sector. Now, as with any webinar, there is a chat facility, so I would encourage you to share some thoughts and some questions, answers. We will have time at the end to get into a meaningful discussion, because the purpose, as I say, is to talk about it, but we don't want to do it just as an educationalist. We also want to be educated, so we want to generate a broader discussion. So if we move on to slide 2, in a moment I will introduce our panel, and we will go on to share our descriptor of blockchain and middleware, rehearse the challenges faced by our sector, indicate how blockchain can address these challenges, describe the initiative we have developed to turn the theory into action, and we will use an example project to bring this to life a little bit, and then I'll open it up for the Q&A and discussion, as I said. So, our speakers who form the panel today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brendan Morahan, co-founder of Invent. Having spent 30 years with a global contractor where I experienced some examples of great innovation and progress, I also saw too many examples of real potential not being realised. Over the last 12 years as a consultant, I've pursued our vision of realising a positive transformation in the sector and have worked at strategic level with our clients to realise this. I'm joined by my colleague, Ben Pritchard, who is a long-serving consultant with us, who has particular expertise in procurement and project management. Ben's experience was initiated in the nuclear sector on the client side, and this gave him great insight into how to procure for value at its best, but of course also experienced some of the barriers. We also have with us the co-founders of Finboot, with whom we are collaborating on this initiative. Nish Kotecha, who's a serial entrepreneur specialising in technology, fintech and social enterprises. And with his business partners, Nish has developed an ecosystem that brings together blockchain technologies in one place, connecting multiple ledgers simultaneously, which brings traceability, transparency and compliance. Also joined by Juan Miguel Perez from Barcelona this morning. Juan is an engineer with a PhD in photonics, has a strong focus on design and development of technology, those that are technology-enabled products, and he has a successful track record of applying digital technologies to a wide range of business sectors. So why are we here today? And in a moment I'll ask Nish to add on to that. But as I touched on earlier, the construction sector has achieved a lot. Certainly in my experience in the time I've been in the industry, which is quite a long time now, but there is just so much more that could and should be done. If we're to achieve our vision of a positive transformation in the sector, this can only be achieved with increased trust, and technologies are available that can assist in developing this. We have to focus on where the value add is and remove the waste that is experienced by every business and on every project every day. We're not short of data in this sector, but we are short of the right data being used in an intelligent way in a digital environment. It was this that inspired us to research the use of blockchain technologies and through our network to identify the right partner. Hence, I was introduced to Nish, who I'd now asked to share his thoughts on blockchain and the middleware that he has developed that will demonstrate why we have decided to collaborate on this initiative. So over to you, Nish.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brendan. May I also say thank you very much for inviting us to join you on this journey, and thanks to the team, Ben, and the team for helping put this webinar together. So I'm going to make a few very brief statements around blockchain and then hand over to my partner, Juan, to talk about our specific solution. For those who are avid readers of The Economist, it's very topical. Blockchain was their main briefing in this week's Economist, talking about how it can be applied to finance. And there's a very good description of blockchain in there, which I'm going to steal some text from, but I'll go into a little bit more color. So blockchain, a database with a history of information that is stored immutably. Think of it as a common database where parties can upload and access data based on permissions simultaneously. So think about that in the context of a way you work with your suppliers and your customers. Once data is stored, it is immutable. And that brings accountability and auditability on the data. Who said what and when? Who told you where the product was and what stage the development was? Bitcoin, very common to us all now, is a popular application of blockchain, but it is not blockchain. It is an application that sits on the technology of blockchain. And it uses what we call the public blockchain. Companies tend to use a private blockchain network, and all of our clients that we work with use a private implementation of blockchain where only permissioned groups, people with the right identities and passwords, can access information at different levels. For companies, this means blockchain in its private permission framework can be used for a group of stakeholders such as suppliers, customers, regulators, to manage the sourcing, production and movement of goods dynamically throughout the supply chain. Unlike the public blockchain networks, private ones are very energy efficient, a big issue of today. Imagine how much time you spend calling, following up on emails, trying to verify what you've received or haven't received is actually correct to enable you to move forward in your business processes. That is all taken away by the use of a common database platform, which is what blockchain is. Data need not only be outward facing. In fact, the best way to start with blockchain usually is internal data, looking at the way that you communicate with teams internally within your organizations. Trust in data can be called to question in many large organizations, with duplication that leads to cost, delays, and inaccuracies that can cost time and money as projects progress. So think how this new database technology can transform your operations, from the introduction of golden thread, ESG requirements, transparency and accountability and auditability. These themes are not yesterday's themes, they are tomorrow's requirements, and that's where blockchain can really add significant value. And with that, I'll hand over to my partner, Juan.
Yeah, thank you, Nish. So I guess Nish has given us a very, very sort of good description of what blockchain is at a high level, but also the value that it can have at an industrial or an enterprise level. Now, one of the challenges we have with that is that it is still a complex technology. So we can recognize and understand the value that it has, but then what does that mean for companies and businesses out there? Doesn't mean that, okay, because blockchain is coming, do I need to hire a team of blockchain engineers to allow me to work with this technology or to interact with this technology? Now, that's certainly not efficient, particularly in non-IT sectors. And that's where the benefit or the need for middleware comes from, right? It's essentially just simplifying or removing the complexity of what is otherwise, well, a very sort of difficult to use underlying technology. Not only that, so not only are we saying, okay, look, through the use of middleware, we can democratize in a way the access and the interaction to blockchain, but also the other challenge that we have out there is how do I bring that into my pre-existing system architecture, right? Because we're already using some systems, we already have some IT solutions that are part of our day-to-day and that are very, very important for the work that we carry on a daily basis. And the reality is we don't want to introduce another siloed, fractured, and disconnected system, that it's just going to mean that our teams will now need to be introducing data in multiple systems repetitively. Now, that's another value or another reason why middleware is there, and it's to kind of build an exoskeleton throughout your system architecture and make sure that if data is available, as Brendan said, there's certainly not a shortage of data in your industry. So if data is there and it's already in a digital form, then a middleware solution can connect to that ecosystem and pull or push information as required, right? And it kind of serves as that environment where information can travel between systems by keeping a very well-tracked and transparent record of how that data has been moved or changed, using the power of that underlying blockchain element, right? So in short, again, middleware solutions simplify our access to blockchain, and in a way they'll accelerate the adoption of that technology. And they also make possible the integration with your existing corporate software applications.
So thank you, Juan and Nish, for sort of explaining blockchain and middleware. Hopefully that has helped everyone out there sort of get through that demystification a little bit of understanding of the technology. But as Brendan sort of began the webinar, we came into this conversation looking to help achieve our organisation's mission, vision to create a better industry, to be at the heart of that. And the starting point is, as I'm sure we're all aware, the industry has a number of challenges that we've had for a long time. I'm sure these next few slides that for context, hopefully none of it will be new to many of you, I'm sure. But these are the things that we were looking at and going, well, how can we achieve something or bring something, some sort of platform together that would answer some of these issues. Collaboration is not new to the industry, but it's something that we continue to say that we can't achieve. Weak collaboration across complex supply chains continues to be an issue for the industry. Productivity, construction is regularly pointed as being an industry that is highly unproductive, that continues to be worse year on year from a productivity point of view, and is 30% lower than UK industrial average, with that gap widening. Quality and safety issues have been in the news a lot recently with Grenfell and other issues, and it is becoming more and more of a focal point with the Hackett review, the golden thread, and the new requirements coming through sort of week by week, day by day. Fragmented organisations, lumpy cyclical revenue, and high risk, weak resilience. You know, we've seen, especially in the last 18 months, how supply shocks can have a really detrimental impact very quickly to us as an industry. Skill shortage, governance investment, environmental sustainability are all things that we struggle with. Social value, the Social Value Act, for those of you who are not aware, is changing, and construction now becomes part of it. So not just a want for us as an industry, us as an economy to do better socially, it is now a requirement for us. But what does that mean? How do we measure it? How do we understand what impact we're truly having now and in the future? And all of it boils down often to that price competition. You know, how can we get ourselves out of that issue that we continually find ourselves in, where it's the race to the bottom? It's nothing but price that changes the who wins dynamic. How can we get away from that? So with all these challenges facing us, all these challenges having faced us for decades, how can we do something different is where we came from. And for a number of years, looking into blockchain for me personally, I always saw it as an answer looking for a question. It was how do we apply that to construction? And part of that was I got down the rabbit hole of, well, isn't blockchain Bitcoin? And it's not until you come to really appreciate and understand how the technology works, what that really means, and you can see wide-ranging applications for it, in the industry. And you can start to see how, as a technology platform, it is a tool that can help address a wide range of those issues that we do face. So Juan, do you want to take a stab at the first few?
Sure. So yeah, I guess collaboration is a key one, right? What blockchain allows us to do is exchange data in a secure and trusted way, right? So how can we be more transparent? How can we bring more traceability into our operations? Again, it is something that blockchain is there to help us with. And at the end, this is an industry where collaboration is at the center of it, right? There are multiple stakeholders that need to exchange information in each one of their projects. That links, so that element of transparency and traceability links very well with the issues that we have in terms of quality and safety, right? What's happening today, again, particularly in the sort of as a result of the Hackett report, is we need to collect more data on our processes, and we need to provide more information, and we need to monitor installations and projects, and all of this just means that more data needs to be shared and needs to be kept track of. And again, that element of traceability of blockchain will allow us to do that in a very efficient and very trusted way. The other element that we've got is around, again, high risk in terms of the financial operations and how can we mitigate some of those risks. Now, another element that blockchain has, because of that immutable record, is you can just essentially keep a track of every transaction that happens in that network. So if you want to validate that work has been completed, then that can bring as a result the payment, or let the payments be released, right? So it's just optimizing as well your financial solutions or your financial operations that are linked to the completion of work or to the evolution of the projects. Ben, I'll let you continue with the other elements.
And that optimization, as you say, works really well from a productivity point of view. So construction is very rules-based when you boil it down, whether that is financially, commercially, or project management, quality management. There are clear steps that should be taken from one step to the other. What often happens on a construction site is those aren't often clear. There is misunderstanding, miscommunications because of how many layers you have in the supply chain, new people coming and going. Creating something within sort of blockchain technology can remove that duplication of process and avoid costly mistakes, avoid uncertainty, just have a clear, immutable understanding of what is required. But also what that can do is, because data is continually created, stored, and reviewed and verified within it, you can learn, you can record, you can learn, and you continually optimize, meaning organizational learning can be shared throughout the business and potentially wider. A private network doesn't necessarily have to just be your organization. You know, we could, if we start dreaming big, have private networks that cover more than one organization, cover more than one part of the industry. But we'll keep that dreaming to a later date, maybe. Then you have things like smart contracts, which I'm sure some of you will have come across, but these can really help with simplifying payment processes, the verification of work done, how that money is transferred from sort of top to bottom, really sort of helping reduce debtor days. Juan, back to you.
Sure. Again, I think there's an element in blockchain itself that it's very much aligned with both environmental and social sustainability, which are two of the points that we are talking about here. Blockchain is being used in a number of sectors around as a leverage, let's say, to the ESG strategies of the enterprises. The reason for that is essentially because, again, you want to be transparent and traceable in the information that you're gathering out there, right? So if we think of social value, again, information on how the projects are being developed, what is the diversity that you have in there, what is the retribution that you're giving to the employees, all of this is information that can be transparently recorded and selectively share, right? Depending on who you want to provide this to, but either customers or regulators, how do we provide that information? Then in terms of competition, digital technologies are becoming critical, and they're an excellent tool to gain a competitive edge or a competitive advantage against your competitors, right? Against your other players in the market. It essentially gives you all of the benefits that we've been discussing, right? So it advances the efficiency in which you handle your operational, strategic, and financial activities, and that will just bring you or set you apart from the rest of the players in the industry.
As you sort of said, Juan, the environment, the impact construction has on the environment is ever increasing in importance. And what we've become very good at as an industry is considering operational carbon creation. What we're learning more and more at the moment is the importance of considering embodied carbon. And that requires us to be better at tracing back where materials came from, being able to trust the data that were provided from that point of view. And that traceability is something that blockchain technologies are really good at. That allows you to track embodied carbon, track where things come from, better track resources more effectively, allowing you to minimize waste. And from a government and investment point of view, that immutability of the data that you're creating, organizationally, project, everything, it allows people to trust the process, trust your procedures, and whatever you put forward, it has far more credibility because of the way that it is verified, the way that it is immutable in nature. So all that thought process, that research, the sort of the conversations between Invent and Finboot have come to a point where we would like to introduce all of you today to sort of an initiative and a platform that we are developing called Buildblocks. So Buildblocks is is the first blockchain middleware for construction. And what does that mean? Juan will cover the more technical aspect, but from a sort of a construction point of view, where we think it really drives value is that when you think of, so much of the sort of burning issues that we have in the industry requires us to be better with the data that we create. Not just create it, but do something with it. Have it in a way that you can generate insights, that you can trust, verify, and understand it. The findings of the Hackett report obviously suggests and requires this golden thread, a real understanding of what materials are being used, how they are being used, how they come together, all of these things that historically as an industry we might end up verifying on every project. But there's no need to do that if you have the technology, the processes, and the verified data in place that allows us all to understand, to share, to improve together. So blockchain promises not only to improve safety in project management, but hopefully to transform the fortunes of the industry and allow us to be better, create value for end users, and value for organizations, and value for people working within the industry. So from a construction point of view, that's where we see Buildblocks really helping. From a technology point of view, Juan?
Yeah. So essentially, I think the answer or the question to answer here is okay, how does this look, right? How will I interact with? And going back to my original comment on middleware, again, the idea is to accelerate the adoption of the technology, right? So how do we create that ecosystem? Well, essentially, this is a solution that has different levels of interaction, right? We can remove all barriers and all complexities and provide web applications that will allow you to connect those areas of the value chain that were completely disconnected. We're working out of paperwork and phone calls at best, and provide them with a solution that they can access with any connected device, right? So you don't need any sophisticated elements or additional software. All you need is a connected device as easy as your smartphone. You can come in here and interact in a sort of click and drag and drop approach, use a solution that is powered by such a strong emerging technology, right? Now, at the same time, the same Buildblocks ecosystem, the same Buildblocks middleware will also allow you to connect in different points of your value chain to legacy systems or to your pre-existing IT architecture. And what that means is the data that is coming in from the web applications or from the construction side being input in that smartphone will be made available in near real time in your ERP system, in your central office or facility or any other system that you have, right? So it's a way of optimizing connectivity, right? We can do it either through legacy systems or simplified by connected device, but all of that information will be distributed in near real time and made available in near real time for everyone, right? And again, introducing all of those elements of blockchain on traceability, auditability, accountability that will come native essentially with the technology, right? So this addition of middleware does not remove any of the principal values that blockchain technology can bring.
Oh, there we go. It's a bit slow there. So where we are in terms of the development is we are still early days of the development. The interface design, software engineering and alpha testing, but we do hope to quickly sort of ramp that up and bring a more of a platform solution long term to the market. But as Juan says, the beauty of the middleware solution is that it can be very flexible and it can be used with existing systems. It isn't something that you have to transform your systems, which again is one of the key reasons why we've come together and looked at this sort of middleware solution, because of the slightly lower barrier to entry that it provides to embracing this new technology. But what does that really look like in action? Example of blockchain and the solutions that it can achieve. The challenges, typical challenges that I'm sure many of your organizations will have seen. A challenge around recording, tracking, monitoring, safety certificates, supply chain, the disparate nature of the supply chain, the requirement to understand where materials are coming from the architects, the engineer, the product developer, all of these different aspects. You're asking 5 people the same question 10 times and probably getting 12 different answers. Doing a sort of a traditional sort of RFI process. Other issues around sort of invoice remittance, slow, unreliable. The validation of works, and being a QS myself by background, having been there, you know, one person might say they've done 90% of the work, I'll say 70%, and all of that constant sort of you know argument around verifying how much work is actually done, that increases debtor days, increases unnecessary arguments on projects, and then lastly, sort of the challenge around ESG commitments to reduce carbon emissions. Construction, according to the Technology Skills Board, is responsible for 45% of UK industrial emissions. So how can we change that? How can we better and reduce the carbon we create as an industry? So Juan, how did blockchain fix that?
Yeah, and that's a very, very quickly again, the solution kind of tried to touch us on those 3 elements, right? Operational, which is mostly linked around the completion of work. So how do we predefine a set of rules, a set of business rules that can allow us to get to the conclusion autonomously by the system itself to say, look, this has been completed, here's the evidence of that, right? The second element is on finances, right? So it's how do we use that data that has been verified operationally to expedite invoice reconciliation and settlement, right? At the end, that is information that will allow us to minimize or eliminate altogether any disputes, because the resolution of, or the reconciliation and the settlement of an invoice is just being done backed by evidence, right, that we've already traced. And the third element to it is at a strategic level, right? So it is okay, now that we have all of this information, traced, registered in a trusted ecosystem, how do we leverage this data to be aligned or to help us with our ESG strategy? So anything that has to do with your sustainability commitments, anything that has to do with that enhanced transparency that you're trying to move to, all of that can be substantiated with the data that we are now tracing at an operational and financial level.
Thanks for that, Juan.
Okay, well, look, thank you for sharing your thoughts, speakers. I think this is the opportunity to open it up to everyone that's joined us this morning. As I said at the outset, this is a journey. This is not us telling you that we have all the answers. We certainly are aware of the challenges. We believe we have a route to come to developing those answers. But as with anything like this, we need some real issues to deal with. And so today we're really seeking people to come forward and share their experiences, share some of the problems they're facing in their businesses, on their projects. It gives us a chance to work with you to develop a solution to some of those individual problems, but collectively then develop something that is scalable for the whole sector. So I would encourage you to use the chat box to share some thoughts, some provocation. If you don't like what you've heard, share that as well. If you've had experiences of using blockchain technologies and they failed, absolutely valid. We want to and need to hear about that. So please use that chat box to raise some questions, raise some points for discussion. A couple, as you'd expect, that have come in already. There was one interesting one, bearing in mind the concerns about energy at the moment. Maybe Nish, Juan, you could respond to this. Is this energy intensive like cryptocurrencies and or environmentally sustainable?
Juan, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. I guess the first thing we need to address when we think about that question is, look, there are many types of blockchain, right? Generally speaking, we can think about public and private blockchains. Public blockchains are ecosystems like those behind cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, which it is true, because of the way they are configured, are very energy hungry, power hungry, right? They do consume a lot of electricity. They're not necessarily sustainable at an environmental level, right? Now, that same technology, that same blockchain technology can be configured differently and adapted and implemented in another form, such as those in permission or private ecosystems, where the energy consumption is significantly reduced because you change some elements in that configuration. And what that gives us is the capacity to take the benefits of blockchain and minimize or eliminate the drawbacks in terms of energy consumption. At the end, look, using a solution powered by a private or permission blockchain has the same level of energy consumption as it would to do, let's say, any activity that is residing on a data center, right? And increasingly, these large data centers are now being powered by renewable electricity. So because all of this is hosted in that type of environment, again, the sustainability of private permission blockchains is it's a key aspect, and it is something that's measured, let's say, as these implementations go on.
Okay, thank you. A question here, I'll link with another question we've had in: how will blockchain integrate with our existing systems? And also, will the rules be flexible and tailored to customers? I've got some thoughts on that, but Ben, do you want to lead off?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the second one, yes, the advantage of middleware is that it allows that flexibility to be bespoke to an individual, but the long-term ambition is to have a platform that can take learning from the network, as many people who allow that sharing to happen, so that there is an optimized process. And then in terms of integrating with our existing systems, I'm sure Juan can give a better technical answer, but essentially it's about mapping your systems onto the platform, onto Buildblocks, and you sort of will almost seamlessly not see a difference, but the difference will be in the output that you receive. You'll be given insight into what's going well there, what isn't going well. You'll have clear, immutable sort of data around bottlenecks, around where the process may fail, where process steps might be missed, or you can stop process steps being missed potentially. So yes, it integrates with systems. Yes, it can be bespoke, and ultimately all that means that we should be able to continually improve and learn and make better processes.
Do you want to answer that, Nish?
No, other than to say, just a reminder that this using the middleware technology that we have, the use of Buildblocks should not be an additional work for any organization, but we can connect with existing systems that you have in your organization, which Juan talked about earlier. So the purpose of this application is to make it easier and simpler, not only to capture the data, but then to analyze and provide you feedback on based on that data on where your projects have got to.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Brendan, if I just may add that technical element to it, in case anyone is well looking for it. But the way the integration happens is through standard API calls, right? So again, this is just the standard of any system or most modern system integrations out there. So the key to it is what Ben said. It's completely seamless to the user, right? That's the core element to have in mind.
Yeah, and I think I would add that we're not saying that the industry is going to be homogenized. We always need innovation. We always need something different. So I can see that in the early stages, this is going to be very bespoke. It's about getting systems that work for individual businesses, making them more effective, more efficient, more confident in the use of blockchain technologies. It's then developing the learning from that gets common issues, common standards, common rules that apply to everyone, and then concentrate on the 20% that is the innovation that is actually driving entrepreneurs and businesses forward. Very interesting question that's come in, Hope, because this is real world by Alex. At what level do you anticipate rollout of such systems, and how do you overcome resistance from suppliers, specialist contractors and subcontractors who, dare I say, happy with current levels of inefficiency and multiple tiers of traditional contract? Who do you envisage leading this rollout? I think this is a really important point, because in any system there are winners and losers, and with the confusion that we're talking about, it is capable of being exploited. And I suppose what we're talking about is how do we get something that is sustainable, not only for the industry but for businesses within that, so that you're removing that peak and trough. Who'd like to lead off with an initial response to that?
Well, I'll lead with one view. I think one of the key things that Buildblocks has is low barriers to entry, because of the middleware platform that it's built upon. It makes it very easy for everyone to bring it, whether you're a small SME, a product manufacturer, or a large tier one. You have too many technologies in the industry. SMEs can often be scared of joining that journey, but it's an easy journey to get on, to feel safe within your own processes, procedures, but still get the benefit of the technology and learn and grow from there. So I think that will help overcome rollout issues because of the ease of use of the technology.
Yeah. I could add a couple of things to this, and it's, look, on the one side, anytime we want to introduce new technology into an ecosystem that has been slow in adopting this type of digital solutions, we need to guarantee or to prove in a way that everyone is gaining value, right? So if we look at subcontractors, or we look at these suppliers that, as Alex said, they have generally been happy with some of the inefficiencies in the industry. if we make them or prove to them the value that themselves and their organizations will be getting. So expediting payments will be one of them, right? Look, you filed in an invoice over weeks, but now you can get this resolved in a matter of days or within a day. That's value for these stakeholders, right? So just understanding where they can gain value from this solution will ease, let's say, or remove some of the barriers for technology adoption. The other part of this is the fact that this level of transparency and this level of digitalization is just essentially where the industry is going, right? We've seen this happen in other industries that have already adopted the technology. In the fashion industry, in the chemical industry, what's happening there is essentially those players that refuse, in a way, to adopt new technologies or to bring that level of transparency into their operations, they're losing market access, right? So some organizations are now saying, well, in order for you to be my supplier, this is the threshold in transparency that you need to meet. If you don't, we just cannot do business together, right? So on the one hand, you will have the fact that the industry as a whole will slowly move into that direction. Early adopters will gain the most value because they will have that competitive edge. Laggers will at the end lose the access to the market that they have today. On the other is just the fact that, look, there truly is value from digitalization for everyone in the value chain, right? And this is something that can be demonstrated, and it's a process that we've also gone through in other implementations, right? Just making sure that we can prove to everyone in the process, here's how this will help you.
Yeah, and maybe if I just add a couple of words, a reminder of what we said earlier. You know, we built Marco to be integratable, to be simple, and to be usable. Marco is the technology that's powering Buildblocks. And Juan mentioned this earlier. At some of your supply chain participants will have a very low level of digital capability, maybe only a laptop or a connected device. That's all they need. So as long as there's no barrier to entry, this should be adopted very quickly.
And I think this is the point. Well, Alex has gone, yes, transparency will be scary for many, especially lower down in the supply chain, but very valid points regarding how this could be phased in. Thank you. Well, that's good, because I think I wanted to stress that point, is that there is going to be valid resistance and invalid resistance. The valid resistance we can deal with demonstrable successes by sharing the experiences we've had elsewhere, and actually working with these businesses to identify the benefits that can accrue, and then they can assess that against their own business model as to whether they wish to move that way. There will be other resistors that say, well, that's not the way I'm going to run my business, I'm going to take it another way. And at the end of the day, the market will determine whether they succeed or otherwise. We have just got to make sure that we are clear on what we're trying to achieve, and make sure that we're selling the value so that businesses can remove a lot of the drudgery and the waste in their business and focus on where they really do have a competitive advantage, where they really are bringing value to their customers. And who do you envisage leading this rollout? Well, bluntly, it's us, unless anyone can do it better than us. And that's what we're about. We don't say that in an arrogant way. We say that in a way that has drawn on the relevant experience within our organizations, and a real belief that the time is right now to do something to actually make use of the technologies that are available. And of course, we can only do that with others. So I repeat the request that we said earlier, that we need people to join us on this journey, to share their experiences, and to offer to become a pilot in some studies. And they can be large, small, they can be project-based, or they can be business-based. Let me just finish with one other query before we actually wrap this up. An interesting point, Ben, you might want to pick up on, and it's about the rules-based system. How much will the rules draw on existing best practice contracts such as NEC4, so that we're not reinventing the wheel? There are certain standards that can be codified, so that we're concentrating on that is bespoke to the organizations.
Yeah, well, and the answer is it can be based completely on them or not, in sort of simple ways. It would be daft to ignore all of the best practice out there, whether it be NEC4, the ISO standards, the BIM framework. There is so much great work that has been done by the industry. At times, that is a blessing and a curse, because there is so much of it out there. You sometimes don't know where to go and how to access it, and that is part of the problems we want to try and overcome as well, by creating a platform that is easily accessible, that can allow you to adopt best practice, but also with things like NEC4. It's not just about what that contract says you and your client, or you and your contractor has to do, but what does that mean for your rest of your supply chain? So by building a sort of this rules-based platform, it can help you quickly sort of create workflows that bring all levels together, removes that duplication, removes any misunderstanding of who should do what, really create that multi-tiered approach to answering the question that the contract's asking.
Thank you. Really interesting question here from Nikki that picks up the transient nature of our sector. It's interesting to see how this works for temporary construction clients, whether it be client-led or market-led, i.e. tier one contractors to take it up, or brought in by the client and cascaded through the projects to the supply chain to also introduce and utilize. Always been such a complex beast given the temporary nature of the industry. And that's definitely a characteristic that I'm aware of. We have great successes, we form great teams, and then they are thrown to the winds to try again. But of course, what we're trying to do is find out what makes great projects, what makes great teams, what makes great businesses, make them standard, so that we're then focusing on what is it that takes them to another level. Who would like to pick up on that in a bit more detail?
I guess I can give my initial opinion about how I see this developing. Generally speaking, I think it will be tier one contractors who take the lead on this adoption. And the reason for that is because clients will set the bar on what they require, but usually they won't necessarily tell the tier one contractor, here's the technology that you have to use. This is usually not the case, particularly in digital, when it comes to digital technologies, right? They just said, here's what you need to make, here's the level of requirement, transparency, traceability, efficiency that you need to provide me with. It is up to that tier one contractor to figure out, well, what resources are out there that will allow me to be competitive enough with others that are bidding in this initiative, right? So that's where I see the most uptake being, or the driving of these solutions being held at. That said, there's been different ways in which the technology has been adopted in other industries, right? So there are others that have been more collaborative and sort of more coordinated efforts, and others that have been in this structure of, okay, that there's always someone taking the lead. But again, that's a little bit how I see it, but happy for Ben and Brendan to provide their insights as well.
So I don't think there is sort of one answer. I think it can be many and all. One of a potential way for it to be introduced that you didn't mention, Nikki, is through product manufacturers. So product manufacturers will have optimized way of installing their product that might not well be understood on site. So with a sort of a private network that everyone can access, they can have and share their optimized workflow of what you should do with their product on site. And that can start a chain reaction. And that can also allow 10 projects to be looking at the same way of doing things. And for project A to say, well, I think this should be done slightly better. And then that can be verified by the product manufacturer. And all of a sudden you've got a better, more optimized process for the industry. So there are lots of different ways that this can cascade. I mean, putting my slightly dusty client hat back on for a minute. I think, even though we were a very large client, UK-wide, and old in many ways, in many respects as a client organization. Every project was that temporary construction sort of client in some ways. You had a new project team come together looking to implement those processes, and often asking the tier one, well, how would you go about it? How can we work together to make things better? And just having a platform that you can collaborate on, that you can trust. And I think that is the one thing our industry has lacked more than anything, in my time anyway, in the industry, is trust. There is always a question of, is this right? Is this accurate? Where's this come from? And that lack of trust has been an issue that I can really see blockchain helping us overcome.
Yeah, and I think I was going to slightly challenge your view as well, and I see Tim has done similarly. The current tier one business model relies on contractual arbitrage as the main value generating mechanism. Will blockchain technology require the tier ones to change their business model? And I think this is picking up the key point, is that, as referred to in the previous question, it is an industry set with complexity, terribly fragmented, and certainly in my experience, whether I'm working on the client side or going through the supply chain, quite often the real value add is either not understood or not translated properly so that people can actually get to the answer in the most effective way. And so I don't look at this as being in the current tiers. I think this is transformative in the way it will attach solutions to problems, how it will attach value to businesses. And when I started researching this, I very quickly realized that when we're talking about blockchain technologies, we're not really talking about an invention. We're talking about a process. We're talking about how do we deal with the process that we have in a more effective way? How do we shorten lines of communication? How do we get the value to where it needs to get to in the quickest way? And having been a tier one for many years, even in those days, I used to challenge whether that was the most effective way. At times it was, but it definitely isn't the only way. So I think this, in my view, blockchain technology really empowers those people who aren't the resistors that I referred to earlier to say, I have something great. I can now concentrate on that is great, on the basis that technologies are helping me do the 80% of my business in a very formulaic way. I don't need to spend time, effort, and money on that. I now need to focus on the 20% that is going to take me away from the competition and really add value to my customer. And that's what I find so exciting, because I think there is a real opportunity now to ensure the winners get their just results. So adding on, take the point. So who will be the customer and who will get the value from blockchain? Okay, right. I'm happy to add to that. Nish, maybe from your experience in other sectors, can you draw some similes to that?
Yes. So I guess what it comes down to is the application, right? So in the context of Buildblocks, the customer will be actually all of your companies, your clients who participate in this platform. But each client may then have an application where they want to use blockchain. So for example, if it's an invoice reconciliation process, and one of your clients wants to install that as an application, then they are the owner of that specific blockchain and capturing the data from the different parties on which that invoice is then produced. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so really, in this case, it's your clients being a customer of the Buildblocks platform.
Ben, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, well, just who will get value from, if we say Buildblocks, not blockchain, I mean, it's inherent on us to make sure that everyone, the whole supply chain that uses it, gets value. Otherwise, we've not created the best platform that we could, and we need to sort of go away, have a talk to ourselves, and build something better. I think there are, going to the tier one sort of thing, one of the things it'll do, it'll transform the way we procure. so much of the selection criteria, which is that requirement to re-verify data, so much of that repetitive task can go away. You can focus on creating value. So much of what this allows you to do through removing repetition, removing unnecessary procedures, is focus on creating value. And then again, sort of, you know, looking sort of longer term and wider, when blockchain technology, when you start amalgamating that with AI and things like that, and you can start creating real insights, and you can start adding further opportunity to remove the person from the repetitive nature of things, and to really focus on what we do best when we're given the opportunity to create value, then there's opportunity for everyone to create value, whatever that looks like. Who will be the blockers to adoption? Well, ourselves, our inherent nature, the fear of the unknown, the fear of change. But again, going back to that low barriers to entry, the fact that this can be done in small baby steps, that it can be done through using the technology on your own processes, your own procedures, learn how to improve yourself first and then grow with it. I think that makes it so much easier to adopt, and can then create that bow wave and that real exponential growth in use.
Okay, well, we do need to bring this to a close. I think the final points I would add to that is that there is clearly going to be a race for talent, and there is clearly going to be a race for finance in this sector. And it's those people that can demonstrate that they are a worthy recipient of finance and a worthy employer of choice. And I think this is going to be the exciting thing here, that we are not going to develop a transformation in this sector unless people are investing in this sector. Why would you invest in this sector if you're not being getting superior returns from everywhere else? So we've got to be able to demonstrate that we can remove that waste you refer to and develop a business case that actually justifies that investment. When you justify that investment, you then start to attract the right talent, and you start to actually very quickly change the mindset within this industry, that it's a place that you want to be in, rather than if you can't succeed anywhere else, then there'll always be a home for you in construction. We've got to change it to a more meritocratic industry, in my opinion. But I do need to finish, but I've been asked at the end, can others join in their journey? How can we keep ourselves updated? So I do want to finish by thanking you for listening. On the slide there, you'll see Ben is coordinating this on all of our behalf. So if you do have some issues that you'd like to share with us, if you'd like to become a pilot customer, you know, we certainly want to hear. If you think that some of the answers haven't been addressed adequately, please contact us. If you want to know more, please contact us. Let's keep the conversation going, because as we've said at the outset, this is a journey. We're sincere about our intent here, but we can only do it with the involvement of others. So thank you for your involvement today. Please keep close to us, and please use those contact details to get in touch. And thank you, speakers, for joining me today. Goodbye, everyone.